Liberal Fox News commentator Jessica Tarlov once again demolished her 4 right-wing co-hosts, first when the topic turned to President Biden's mental acuity compared to Donald Trump's, and then immediately after when they attempted to deny the meaningful advantages and gains President Biden has enjoyed recently over Donald Trump. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, as you know, we love a good Jessica Tarlov story, and she is currently several months pregnant. It won't be too long before she goes on maternity leave, and we will be deprived of her brilliance and her debate prowess, so we got to enjoy her while we can. And this most recent episode of The Five, she once again just demolished her right-wing co-hosts when the topic turned to 2 things. First, mental acuity, and then to both long-term advantages that President Biden has enjoyed over Donald Trump, and then immediate short-term gains that President Biden has gotten over the past several weeks, particularly since the State of the Union. We're going to start with the mental acuity part first. This is Jeanine Pirro trying to tee up a gotcha on Jessica Tarlov, and she handles it very well.
And, you know, Jessica, Trump took a mental acuity test and aced it. Why won't Biden?
Well, this mental acuity test, which included identifying animals and counting backwards by a factor of 7, is something they give to people that have been in traumatic accidents. So I don't know why he's...
Why wouldn't Biden take it? He's had a couple of brain surgeries.
Come on. It's embarrassing when Trump says that, and when he did like man, person, woman, camera, or whatever he said to Chris Wallace.
It is true. When Donald Trump attempts to brag about this test, it's really nothing to write home about. It's not an IQ test. It's a test that's given to people to attest whether or not they've suffered some sort of acute mental trauma, concussion, a car accident, something like that, right? To attest actual brain damage. Donald Trump passing it really doesn't say anything about fitness for office. It just says that you're basically functional as an adult, that there's no immediate acute brain damage or mental issue of that sort. Is that the standard by which we're evaluating whether a person should be president? Probably not. It is embarrassing that this is something he hangs his hat on. As to why President Biden hasn't taken the test, probably because he feels that he has nothing to prove, given that he has not had, that we know of, any sort of concussion or acute mental episode, or again, like that would trigger some sort of brain damage. The question is about mental fitness. That's really what this is about. Donald Trump's test has nothing to do with mental fitness for the highest, most demanding job in the world. So on that note, I will remind everybody that yes, obviously President Biden has a perception issue in the polling. There's no question about that this is a problem for him in the polls. But what people neglect to mention all the time, including liberals too often, or progressives or people affiliated with the Democratic Party, is that Trump also has this perception issue. We've talked about poll after poll after poll, and I collected just a couple of recent ones from the Associated Press. Yes, more than 6 in 10, 63%, say they're not very or not at all confident in President Biden's mental capability to serve as president. But 57% in the same poll say the same thing about Donald Trump. It's an issue for Donald Trump. A majority of Americans consistently say that Donald Trump lacks the mental fitness to be president. And yet nobody makes Trump or Trump supporters contend with this. Nobody does. Another poll from, I think this one is from Harris Polling. Almost 2/3, 63% of registered voters have doubts about Biden's mental fitness for office. About half, 51% of Americans have the same doubts about Trump's mental fitness as it relates to his ability to serve as president. Again, now you can say it's worse for Biden in terms of perception. Okay, fine, fair enough. But don't pretend that this is not also an issue for Trump, that a majority of Americans in poll after poll after poll say that they also doubt his mental fitness for office. And Trump supporters should also be forced to contend with this. But then Jessica Tarlov also had to remind them, her 4 right-wing co-hosts, about the meaningful gains, some of which have been like relatively long, fundraising, and then others which are relatively recent, which is polling, even in battleground states. Biden is on an upswing.
And this is an issue. And this topic for Biden has gotten demonstrably better over the course of the last month. Think about where we were before the State of the Union, when it was what everyone was talking about. Ezra Klein came out with that piece saying, it's not going to work. You should just resign a hero. And because Biden has been out there in the last week, he's visited
the American people feel better about Biden since he was jagged up for the State of the Union?
He wasn't jagged up, and this accusation that he was on drugs is a little absurd. But yeah, I do feel that, and it's reflected in the polling on it, how much money he's fundraising and the kind of campaign that he's running. He's been to every single swing state since the State of the Union. You can see it. Donald Trump has had that rally in Ohio. Otherwise, he has been in courtrooms and he's been golfing.
This is true. So, okay, number one, President Biden's tour schedule effectively has been grueling. He has been to every battleground state, whereas Donald Trump has slowed down tremendously. Also, President Biden is governing the country, whereas Donald Trump not only is not doing that now, but arguably didn't do that the 4 years he was in office, hence the lack of physical stress because he wasn't actively engaged in the job. But beyond that, the fundraising disparity has been going on for quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. I believe by the last count, President Biden and the Democrats have, in terms of cash on hand, double what Trump and the Republicans do. And Trump is apparently hemorrhaging small donors. And then the polling, again, it's relatively close. It's within the margin of error. But Biden is now overall leading in the polls and has gained meaningfully in battleground states. He hasn't overcome Trump in all of them. He has in a few, but he has gained. It has only gone to his betterment. Now, that may change in the next couple of months. Believe me, as I've said, polls are a snapshot in time, and we are months and months and months away from the election. So it has time to go back in the opposite direction, but it also has time to continue trending in the direction we want to see. But right now, Biden has a polling advantage. Biden has a fundraising advantage. And the one advantage that they're hanging their hopes on, the polling perception on mental fitness, Donald Trump also has an issue there. And he demonstrates that issue every time he opens his mouth. So good on Jessica Tarlov for reminding these people of that. And also, again, Jeanine Pirro's, her skepticism, her incredulity, her surprise, this idea that, wait, people want to see more of Biden. People are more confident after the State of the Union about Biden's mental fitness. Well, yeah, again, it's reflected in the polling, in the fundraising. I think he broke it again, but at the time, their best 24-hour period for fundraising followed the State of the Union. So people seem to be putting their money where their mouths are. And again, good on Jessica Tarlov for pointing that out to a Fox News audience that probably would otherwise never hear about this stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments.